I want to just go to the Washington Post, reporting that President Trump told his acting chief of staff, as I mentioned, Mick Mulvaney, to hold back almost $400 million in military aid for Ukraine at least a week before a phone call in which Trump is said to have pressured the Ukrainian president to investigate the son of a political opponent. That's according to 3 senior officials from the administration. Joining me by phone now is Carol Lennick, national investigative reporter for the Washington Post. Carol, the reporting coming out of the Post tonight is fast and furious about this. Congratulations to you and your team for doing it. But it seems that someone's talking about the fact that, not only did the president do this, but there's context around it that should make this yet more worrying to Americans.
Thank you, Ali. I think what we are learning is in dribs and drabs that I assume must be somewhat painful for some people in the White House and the Justice Department. We're learning day by day more information about the nature of the president's interest in Ukraine and his personal effort to reach down into state and Department of Defense funding and hold it back from the Ukraine while he was, days away from talking to the president and, according to our sources, pressuring the Ukrainian president to investigate Biden's son.
I've read to my audience the key paragraph in this story a couple of times, but I want to go a couple paragraphs lower where it says administration officials were instructed to tell lawmakers that the delays were part of a, quote, interagency process, but to give them no additional information, a pattern that continued for nearly 2 months until the White House released the funds on the night of September 11th, 2019. Now, Carol, this is reporting, so you're not drawing conclusions as to what that means. But that is another layer of this story that is interesting. That it's not just that it was delayed; it's that there was some sort of message crafted for lawmakers who might wonder why this aid to an ally, particularly an ally that is fighting off Russian expansionism, was delayed. They would have legitimate questions about that. And it seems that not only was the money delayed, but there was a response crafted that might have been less than truthful.
Well, we don't know what the truth is yet. We don't know the full truth yet. We've had some administration officials, senior ones tonight, tell us that basically Trump's goals were to focus on corruption, that he was worried about whether or not the Ukrainian government was going to spend the money properly, that it had nothing to do with Zelensky. The issues, Ali, is that really the timing, while on September 9th, the whistleblower's complaint is, the Congress is alerted to that complaint. On the 10th, my understanding is that Congress is starting to get upset about why they don't have the complaint, the nature of it, from the Director of National Intelligence and the Inspector General. And then on the night of the 11th, our understanding is the aid is released. It's just an odd series of dates. It's not dispositive. We don't know exactly what happened. It's just interesting.
What's also interesting is the reporting a little later in the story, which says former National Security Advisor John Bolton wanted to release the money to Ukraine because he thought it would help the country while curtailing Russian aggression. But Trump said, as you just mentioned, he was primarily concerned with corruption. That theme occurs throughout the story, and it has occurred today several times when Donald Trump has spoken to media at the United Nations, where he said this is all about corruption. He doesn't seem to have a valid explanation as to why Joe Biden and his son were brought into the discussion with the Ukrainian president.
I think in the long run, and I don't know that this will answer your question, but in the long run, there are a lot of things that we aren't fully knowledgeable about yet about this story. And it seems interesting to me that Biden isn't particularly thrilled, a candidate for the Democratic nomination, is not particularly thrilled about discussing this either and sharing information about what happened with his son, who didn't seem to have any real experience in this field and yet was serving on a board making a lot of money for a Ukrainian natural gas company. There's something that's not fully transparent about that either. So we have to figure out all of those pieces, and it's going to take a little while for us to get there. What Congress is trying to figure out now is what was the president's goal in pressing a Ukrainian president to investigate Biden? At the same time, he was pressing his own government to withhold funding to the Ukraine.
Carol, thank you. Carol Leonnig of the Washington Post on a breaking story that continues to be updated with new information that Donald Trump ordered a hold on military aid days before calling the Ukrainian president.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.